Welcome once again to 28 Days, where we're celebrating 28 days of our heritage, our culture, our stories. And today on the set, we had a distinct pleasure to welcome Dr. Nance to the set. Welcome to the set.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, Dr. Nance, can you give people a good snapshot of who you are and what you do?
I would love to do that. And when we figure this out, I may tell my boss.
Okay.
I have an official title. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Multicultural Affairs. Mm-hmm. And I am also a professor in the Communication Department, where I teach courses on rhetoric, performance, and just about anything else that the Communication Department needs me to teach.
Now, I understand that you have a niche, if I can say that. You got a couple niches.
I do.
In multicultural affairs.
I do.
Can you unpack that for me? Can you describe what that is?
Certainly. At Villanova, we have a commitment to serve the entire community. And for too long, the community was narrowly defined.
Okay.
And quite frankly, it was defined as white and male. But as Villanova grew, so did our definition of community. And one of the things that we talk about is community is even more than the demographics that you can list on a piece of paper. Community is about who's made to feel welcome at the university. And so that's part of my job. My job is to make sure that people who were previously underrepresented at the community not only are invited into Villanova, but made to be an essential part of who we are and what we do. So it's interesting that while this is an administrative position, I am a teacher. So when you ask, who am I will tell you, my bottom line, no matter what academic, no matter what administrative title people give me, I fundamentally am a teacher. Because what I'm trying to do is to help people understand one another and how we can work together to make the university even better for everyone involved.
You know, through my research about you, my understanding that you have a deep and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to African American rhetoric. Can you expound on that? Because I think that's intriguing.
Absolutely. I started teaching African American rhetoric when I was in graduate school.
Okay.
And I will tell you, back then, I was primarily interested in really discovering rhetors, big, important speakers who were African American, because I did not learn that in my undergraduate education. And I wanted my students, black and white, to know that there were more people who were great speakers than Martin Luther King and maybe even Frederick Douglass. So that what I did is I went all the way back.
Okay.
And I did limit it to the beginnings of the United States because I am studying African American rhetoric.
Okay.
And I wanted to find who were those early Africans who were well trained, who knew that slavery was not just a political wrong, but was a moral wrong, and that we could not found this country on what was such a great lie, that if you're going to talk about freedom and you're going to talk about inalienable rights, that you can't just talk about it in terms of one set of people. And so there were important people that we had to discover about that. Now, and I taught this course off and on for a very long time.
Okay.
And what I'm so excited about now is that definition has really been expanded. Now, when I talk about African American rhetoric, I'm really interested in the ways in which symbols, and note, I'm not just talking about speeches anymore, but how symbols have been used to construct the identity of African American people and the African American community. Wow. So that sounds like I'm splitting hairs or being crazy, but let me tell you, when you talk about symbols, at first, when Africans who subsequently became African Americans came to this country, they weren't even really people.
Yeah.
They were property. And if you think about that, that didn't just happen naturally. There had to be some language that got exchanged in order to make that transition. And so we have European scientists, and you may have heard the name Blumenbach somewhere along the line, right? Who came up with this sort of way of categorizing people. And he said the most beautiful people in the world were the people from the Caucasus Mountain area, right? And that everybody else should be judged as to how different they were from these most beautiful people in the world. So who was the farthest away? Well, those Africans. And what becomes interesting then is so that we have now this hierarchy of colors of people. And then we have another little interesting thing with language going on. And one of the little, what do we call these, fallacies, that a language fallacy that we have, now hang on to this, is that there is a fallacy that A cannot be not A. So what does this mean? If A is white and not A is black, then if A is intelligent and B and black is not A, then can it be intelligent? Of course not. If A is moral, black must be immoral. A, people, person with a soul, black, we're going to have some trouble here. So that what happened was that fundamentally that we had the intelligentsia of the United States, among them Thomas Jefferson. And I have great respect for the man. I have great respect for the man. But he's also he was a scientist, right? The new science of genetics. And so he was arguing that by science, by the reasoning that I just laid out, that these people, that these beings were not fully human. And in many ways, that was the beginning of justifying slavery. Now, what we study is that we want to study the whole narrative. And so we know that this kind of reasoning also goes very much along with the nation's burgeoning economy. Because all of a sudden we realized we have new markets that we can begin to sell our products to. Now, it doesn't take you long to figure out that if I can reduce my labor costs and I can sell my product abroad, I can make more profit. So how can I reduce my profits? How can I reduce my labor costs? Well, at first, I had indentured servants, right? Because first blacks came over indentured servants. But, after a few years, they worked off their indenture. They could go free. Well, now, if I have these people who are slaves, right, and I use matrilineage, which means that that it's not just, I get my slave status not from the father, but from the mother, boy, I got a steady supply of folks to do my work to increase my profits. So look at what's happened. I have a justification of these beings who are not fully human, right? They're somewhere between human and animal. Read Thomas Jefferson Notes on the State of Virginia. He explains it all carefully there. I have this economy that I have to build up. I'm going to reduce my labor costs. It becomes a perfect potion, right, to create the America that we have today. And the last thing, well, this will never be the last thing I'll say about this, but one of the things that I'll say is that the sin of slavery, and it is America's original sin, has to be recognized if it ever's to be forgiven. So when we talk about reparations, I've given up hope on my 40 acres, and I sure know I can't do much with a mule.
Yeah.
But I do know that as a country, we have to face our racial history if we're ever going to move forward. This summer we exploded. There were problems from Ferguson, Missouri, to Cleveland, Ohio, to Staten Island, New York. And in my class, we can draw that right back to the founding of this country, on the original sin of slavery, on the original sin of not recognizing the humanity in people who look different than us.
So as we wrap up, this is intriguing, and I love this. What are some ways people can get in contact with you?
They can take my class if you're a student.
Okay. So how can they get you? Email?
Absolutely. You can get my email at Villanova University. First name Terry, last name Nance at villanova.edu. And I would love to talk to anybody about this topic that I have incredible passion for.
Wow. Hey, look, I really appreciate this. And one of the things I enjoy is she has deconstruct so we can reconstruct the narrative that's been out there. Hey, listen. promise, as once again, welcome back to 28 Days. We're going to bring somebody interesting. Once again, as promised, where we're celebrating our history, our heritage, our culture, and telling these great stories. We ask you to tune in tomorrow, and we thank you for coming. Have a great day.